In Weave World and Imagica and Thief of Always, and in a lot of your books, there's the business of going through doors, going through walls, going into worlds which exist alongside, dominions they're sometimes called. It nearly always happens that when they go through these doors, they go through this world, they go to a sort of higher level of feeling, thinking, experiencing. Where does that come from?
I think it comes from the experience of the imagination. I mean, I think that again, to Blake, the idea that the imagination in us is evidence of the divine. Jesus, the imagination, the spiritual tool by which we can experiment with possibilities. I think that the kind of fiction I'm writing is metaphysical fiction. That is, it deals constantly with how it might be if our flesh was slightly different, how it might be if our spirits manifested themselves physically, how it might be if our bodies and our minds were totally separated. That happens quite a lot. The mind takes a journey in the books very often separated from the body. The body is constantly transforming in the books. I mean, flesh in my fiction is protean. It sprouts, it bulges,
Maidens change into dragons and dragons change.
Exactly. And in a way, that's a nice image of what I'm trying to say, that our imaginations are constantly transforming us in our dream lives and even in our waking lives. I mean, in our relation to what we see in the mirror, in our relation to what we choose to wear, in the relationship to the way we present ourselves to the world. It's a game of illusions. And we kid ourselves all the time about who we are, what we seem to be. Making marks on a piece of paper, just letting it come, is the least intellectual of the arts that I'm involved in. I mean, I have to think very hard to structure a book. This stuff is very immediate, you know. It plugs into stuff which is pretty deeply rooted in my psyche, so deeply in the sense that some of these characters have been appearing on pieces of paper now for maybe 30 years in various incarnations. I think the thing that surprises me occasionally is how familiar I am with things which would normally fall under the heading of subconscious material. I think the wall, which is quite strong and quite implacable in most people, between the subconscious and the conscious, in me is you know, has got large holes in it. I think there's toings and froings constantly. And I only ever really basically paint human beings. And I usually paint people in some transformed state or other. Either they're on their way to being transformed or they are transformed. Those subjects never lose their power to arouse us and distress us, because the ongoing drama of the body is one that we meet in the mirror every morning. The oil paintings, on this scale at least, are a new departure for me. The last 18 months maybe I've been making paintings this large, and on occasion a little larger, and exhibiting them in New York and Los Angeles. The pleasure for me, or one of the pleasures of making paintings, is that they are absolutely beyond the word. And I work so much with words, and I enjoy working with words. But it's a great pleasure to be liberated into a place where the word has no dominion. The most often asked question is, what kind of drugs do you use to do this stuff? And I don't. I don't think I would be particularly empowered by the drug experience. I'm actually rather fearful of it. I suppose I'm a control freak when it comes to my imagination, and I'm deeply suspicious of the guy who says, "Oh well, I have to get drunk to write," or you know, "I only see visions when I've eaten mushrooms." The imaginative tool is in us all. You only have to go to a schoolyard and hear 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds playing and see that there isn't a kid in the schoolyard who doesn't have this vital thing blossoming, flowering in them all the time. What happens is that we get educated, and there's a lot of good things about education, but one of the bad things is that the capitalist system is preparing us for a 40-hour week in which our imaginations must not be overstimulated.
What effect do you think you're having on readers? Do you think imagination can really transform people's lives? And if so, in what way?
You can only go from your own experience. My life has absolutely been transformed by the imaginative possibilities offered to me by artists. Isn't that one of the reasons why we go to books and paintings and theatre and movies? We go because we want our lives enriched, and that enrichment is a kind of change. We want our pain illuminated, and if it's illuminated, maybe it isn't quite so terrible.